Hey everybody! Welcome to Fantastic Family Fridays. I'm Greg Denning, the author and creator of the 5 Fundamental Factors for a Fantastic Life. And we're here to help you today to create that fantastic family culture. We're going to talk more about that today, what culture is, and just to really have a happy, fulfilling, exciting family life, right? And man, I've just been thinking a lot about that lately. Even this week, we looked through some old pictures of our kids, and isn't it amazing how fast your kids grow up? I mean, just a couple years ago, they looked like so little, just chubby, cute little kids. Now they're grown up and doing so much more, and boy, it was just gave me a real sense that time's flying by. Life flies by. You just gotta take advantage and step it up. Really bring it and show up, get off the porch, play with the big dogs, and create a fantastic family culture. So today is huge, and I have a feeling you're going to see some passion because we get excited about this stuff. So don't be scared. I can't hurt you through the camera. No, but this is such an important topic, and one where we feel so passionate about. Every time Rachel and I talk about this, man, we just get fired up. And just the two of us, we'll be out on our morning hike or walking around the house, and we get this conversation comes up, and we just, oh yeah, this is huge. It's so important, and so we're gonna go to it. But before we get started, just chime in, please. We love comments. We love questions. So hop in, communicate with us, interact with us. Let's get involved, and I'm sure you're going to feel the passion that we feel. You're going to feel this enthusiasm. You're going to feel the excitement. You're going to feel the importance, and you already do. And I know a lot of you are looking for answers to how to handle this situation in your own families. And whenever we talk to you about it, there's a lot of passion and there's a lot of interest in this topic, and a lot of people just wondering, what can I do? And Rachel and I are so pumped about this, so excited about it. We've been studying it for years and years and years. I mean, literally, well over a decade, just devouring this. And we're creating a course. And I guess I'll just go ahead and announce it. We're creating a 12-week course on the power and importance of getting a phenomenal education in your home and with your family. Not only for your children and their future. I mean, if you do it right, it's going to set the course for generations, but for yourself as well. And this is the deal breaker. It's make it or break it. I mean, this is what separates greatness from mediocrity. And we're going to get more in that today. But that's it. We're diving into it. And what is it? And the misconception about education. I mean, here we go. This is getting exciting. We're about to rock and roll. So, Rach, you want to chime in and take this?
Okay, I'm here. So in the last couple of weeks, we've given you like real specific tips or techniques, like go have your PMS, which is your parental mastermind session, and you do that every week, and you have your kid conversations. Today, we're kind of going to take a step back and get a little bit of a bigger picture, right? So that in the coming weeks, we're going to be giving puzzle pieces. But in order for you to put the puzzle together, you need to clearly have an idea, a picture of what it looks like. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, is getting this kind of big picture that is the place where all these puzzle pieces are going to go together, okay? So that's what we're going to do today. And you know what the thing is? Unfortunately, too many people are quick to discount this, and they're just gonna be like, oh, whatever, it's not as important as you're saying. And we're saying, don't be one of those people. Seriously, don't. So pay close attention and realize that this is critically important. I mean, what we're talking about today is setting the foundation for your entire life and the lives of your children. I mean, it's going to determine everything. This foundation, this big picture, this philosophy towards life determines success or failure, wealth or poverty. I mean, it's everything. It's so huge, and it's whether or not you are making an impact and an influence in this world. So we want you to understand this is so important. So don't discount it, okay? We're going to start by clearing my throat so I can talk. We're going to start by just it's so important that we want to make sure that you get this vision, okay? And so we're going to do the best we can, but we need you to be able to open up your mind to these ideas and get this all-encompassing view of what we're discussing. And we're kind of like not saying what it is because we want to emphasize the importance of it before we say it, because once we say the word, a certain word, you're going to have automatic responses to what that word means to you. And you're going to immediately associate it with things like, oh, it means this. And it doesn't. That's not what we're talking about. It doesn't mean that. So that's why I'm kind of like this big picture, this big, thing. It is something specific, but we're trying to prep you before we, talk about it so that you don't immediately go to that image or that response or that, how you've been conditioned to think about this, okay? But understanding and applying the key elements of this big picture is going to direct the life that you lead, and it's going to direct and guide the way you interact with your family and how you teach them and mentor them to becoming great people. Because the truth is, all of us, and if you think about your children and if you think about yourself, and maybe in yourself you doubt it, but if you think about children with their innocence and their purity and their potential, okay, they have a huge potential to become, to do, to achieve great things. And I think that all of us can admit that, about our kids. And this doesn't mean that every person, every child is going to grow up to be Gandhi or the President of the United States. But every one of us has the potential and the power to be a leader and an influencer, at least, if nothing else, in our home and in our circle of influence. And we have the power to expand those circles of influence. So we need to realize that that is the potential and power that we have and that our children have. And we need to organize and arrange our lives so that our children, especially, and ourselves, are able to reach those full potentials. That's what this is about. And that's why we need this big picture. Okay? So, for a minute, I want you to think about, you're on your deathbed, okay? It's not a fun topic, and it's not something that we think about. We think, we feel alive, and we think that life will just go on forever, but it's going to end at some point. It is. My own father died almost, 11 years ago, and he was young. He was only 45, right, hun? 47, sorry. He was only 47, okay? That's not that far away from where I am. I just turned 35 last month. That's not that far away from where I am, and we think life is going to go on forever. And I don't think my dad imagined he would be ending his life at 47. And so when we're at that time, when we're at that moment, we're on our deathbed and we're taking our last breaths, which I can see my dad right now in my mind doing that, we need to think about what kind of impact we've had on the world. We need to think about the influence that we've had, the legacy that we are leaving. And I know for my dad, he gave me this huge love of learning, of reading. Sorry. So when we get to that point, we need to realize that that right there, that moment, is the true test of what kind of life we've led and the success that we've had. Are we going to be surrounded by family and friends like my dad was? He was surrounded by family. Are we going to be loved? Are we going to be missed? Or are we going to be broke and alone and, despised by people that know us? And what kind of example are we going to inspire for those who are following after us, for our children and their children and their children? That's what we're talking about, okay? That's why this is so important, because it's affecting those things that are crucial. So, what is it? What is this big picture? What is this all-important thing we're talking about? And what it is your educational foundation, okay? It's the type of education you pursue. And immediately you're like, education, what? You mean like tests and grades and getting a diploma and a degree? No, that's not what we're talking about. It's not that. that's why we prepped you so much, because that's not what it's about. It's not about test scores, and it's not about grades, and it's not about academics. Where academics have a place in it, but that's not what it's about. We're talking about something greater and grander than that. Okay? And we're talking about who you become. We're talking about developing your character. I'm talking about the type of influence you have on the world. That's the type of education. That in our minds, that's the definition of a real, true, great education. Okay, it encompasses all that. It includes academics, because it's important to know, obviously, how to read and write and think and math and all those types of things. Those things are important. But we've been conditioned in developing countries like the United States to equate education means I've gotten a degree, or I have my diploma, and so I'm educated now, and it's done. It's like this thing, we go to school, we get our education, and then we graduate. And that's not what it is, right? I know at this point, Hen, you're wanting to just chime in, because, yeah, that's not what it is. Yeah, go ahead and join in, Hen. I've been talking too much.
Okay, whew, I was about to start throwing things so I could get my turn. That was great. You guys, this is huge. I'm going to go back and overemphasize it. This is the lens through which we see everything. This is the way we operate. This is a way of life. Education for us is a lifestyle. It's a way of living. There's no graduation from education. There's no vacation from education. There's no days off. There's no summer breaks. There's no winter breaks. There's nothing. It's learn, and it's phenomenal. It's not a chore. It's not a task. It's not something I dread. This love of learning permeates your whole life and your whole lifestyle, and now it's a habit in our home. And we're going to talk about these systems that you set up. But it's the way you live, and so our kids do it, we do it, we have a routine, we have rituals, educational rituals. We're going to talk about that. I mean, these are the most sacred things we always do. When I was going to the university, I couldn't wait till the breaks because I could pound the books that I wanted to read. I mean, over Christmas break, I'd read 4 or 5 books. I loved it. I was just ready to learn. I'm like, they're making me do all this stuff, which I enjoyed the university. I really did, and there were some great classes. There were some crappy ones and some horrible non-teachers. We won't get into that. But there's another way to live. There's another way to make things happen, and it affects the way you see things. So I want to just send out kind of a little invitation here. Very often we're resistant to ideas kind of separate from what we think or what we've been trained or conditioned to think. Maybe we're gung-ho for public education, and anyone mentions homeschooling, you're just like, and you don't even listen. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's you're a homeschooler, and anyone who mentions public, or go to the hospital versus home, whatever. I mean, all these topics, and we just are so resistant. Western philosophy versus Eastern philosophy. We've been reading and studying this lately. And Rachel, I feel strongly that there's so much value in listening and learning from all over the world. From all different histories, all different backgrounds, all different educational philosophies, and acquiring the truth, right? All truth can be packaged into one great whole. And so our lives is to look for truth. It's this quest for knowledge and learning and excellence. And things we can bring into our lives that become a part of our lives that we can really start making these things happen. So education, please don't ever say, I got my education. Or like I see all the time, I finally took my last test. I'm never writing another paper. I'm never taking another exam. I'm never reading another book. And statistically, 68% of Americans don't read a great book after their last graduation. And they read the fluff and the this and that and the other. And we got to go after it. And I guess we'll just come out right here, and this is a good time to say, I am the first one to say I am utterly ignorant and undereducated. I look at the great minds and just like, duh. I mean, some of the stuff that when I read Immanuel Kant and Descartes and those guys, I can't understand what they're saying. But I started doing some numbers and some figures. I think I have well over 23,000 hours of study after the university, like outside of official formal schooling. I mean, Rachel and I, we read many hundreds of books. We study, we learn, we memorize. We're constantly getting it from audiobooks, audio programs, videos. I mean, wherever we can, we're absorbing it, and still utterly ignorant. And I guess that's a foundational step to education. You really have to grasp this vision, and that's what we're trying so desperately to try to help you see that. What is it? What does it mean to be educated? What's that long-term view? What's the end result thinking? You know, what are you going to become in the end? What are your children going to be when they're adults? And what is that? And what that foundational step is to, you know, realize that you don't know, that you are undereducated, and for a lot of us that's a hard pill to swallow. You know, maybe we've spent a lot of money, a lot of time, and gotten those degrees or the certificates. Maybe it's hard for us. The ego says, ouch, I'm ignorant, I'm undereducated. You know, oh no, you don't want to be uneducated, undereducated. But part of that is, you know, if we realize, hey, a phenomenal world-class education, if we start to get an idea of that, and again, it takes years to really grasp it. If you start to get an idea what that is, and you realize, man, I don't have one, then you put in a system and you put in the rituals to make it happen. I mean, you go after it, right? And then is your foundation. Like for me, and my list keeps growing. You know, initially it was about 1,000 of the best books ever written that were a foundation, a beginning foundation for my education. But I think that list now is 1,500, 2,000 books, just to begin to start seeing the big conversation, right? The great conversation. If you don't even know what that is, I invite you to study it. But start getting into that and start seeing the big picture and really start considering the end result. What is it we really want? We've been trained, and we're going to get into the 3 levels or the 3 types of education. Maybe we'll jump into that right now, but let me say this. We've been trained to think, okay, go to school, you know, do your homework, pay attention in class, do your assignments, get good grades, take those tests, get good grades, and then, you know, kind of go through the hoops, and you'll get a diploma, you'll get your certificates, you'll get your degrees, and then that's it. Well, you know what? That's all, here comes the passion. It's all bogus. Okay, it's all bogus. And here's why. Okay, and I'll help you understand that. There was a guy. He's a PhD professor in Georgia. His name's Thomas Stanley. Okay, and I highly recommend his books. Phenomenal books. Maybe you've heard of The Millionaire Next Door, but the best one that I think is called The Millionaire Mind. And this guy went after really, truly successful people. He went after real millionaires, not the people putting on the bling bling, not the people with the fancy cars and houses that many people have an appearance of wealth, but they don't actually have it. These are real multimillionaires, decamillionaires, and mega millionaires. And he studied them. He said, I want to know your habits, your actions. I want to know all about it. I want to know your life, your childhood. I want to know what you've done. What's the common denominator among you? And referring to academics, this is what he found. He said that you know, they went in and they're trying to measure intelligence, you know, that's measured by tests and grades in the school system. He says it has very little or nothing to do with achieving success in life. He found in all his studies, he found 0 correlation with success in the outside world as measured by success in an academic setting. Okay, it only has a relation to success in academics. That's it. And yet we constantly put so much importance and so much credibility on grades, and he found there was no correlation to outside success. Not in families, not in marriages, not in businesses, not in making a difference in the world. There was nothing. And so we're stuck with this conditioning of get the grades and do that. Now, again, if you're starting to get your feathers ruffled and starting to just hear me out. I feel strong about this. Maybe you have a different opinion, but let's listen to each other and get the goods from both sides. I know there are good things. I know there's discipline, and I know there's work ethic and habits, and I understand all that. But for in this conversation, I just want to point out that we emphasize so much the grades and miss out on the other things. There's a great book that I highly recommend called Successful Intelligence. And yes, it is a very expensive book, but worth it. I mean, what is successful intelligence? What is education? It's so much more than just the grades, the tests, the certificates, the diplomas, all that stuff. And I know you as a parent, as a leader in your home,
Are we live? Are we back? We are back. I think we are back from our Costa Rican internet intermission. Welcome. Are you back, Ken?
I'm back.
Okay. Well, I will go ahead.
Do 3 types of education.
Okay, we don't know exactly where Greg stopped talking, what you heard, but I'm going to go ahead and add a couple things. First of all, our thing is not anti-academics in any way. We are all about that. You need to be academically educated. But the point is that emphasis has been too emphasized in society in general. When we talk about education, we're worried about our kids going to great school, and our kids are like, people are like, well, my kids go to this really great school, so yeah, they're getting a good education. We're saying, no, it's so much more than that. That can play an important part. We're not saying homeschool, we're not saying public school, we're not saying private school. We're saying you need to include all of that. You need to include academics in this bigger picture of education as we're defining it here. It needs to be a part of this whole, okay? That's what we're talking about. So, we want to be really clear on that you're understanding that this definition of education we're talking about is just different than what we've been conditioned to believe it is, okay? So Greg had mentioned the 3 types of education. That's something that we're going to talk about right now, because this is going to help you understand how to implement this into your life. And so historically, let's do a little history lesson here. If you look at history, throughout history you'll see that there are generally 3 major types of education. And all civilizations have had at least 2 of those types of education. And what they are is, first of all, government or public school, professional education, and then what's called leadership education. And the 2 that all civilizations usually have are the professional education and the leadership education. And some civilizations have added the 3rd, which is government or public schooling. civilizations like ancient Greece, ancient Rome, you know, Germany in the 18th century, and then in the mid-19th centuries when the United States added government schooling to its, you know, it was an offering. It became available. And most civilizations that have added government schooling, they usually progress and advance, especially economically, because what happens is with government education, now the masses in general are able to receive basic literacy. You know, they're able to be educated in basic literacy. They can do math now. They can read. They can write. And what happens is that now they are able to get better jobs. And better jobs mean that the overall economic conditions of the country improve. So having government education is a good thing. It's a great thing, you know. And today, you know, in most countries there is that form of government education, and it's helping countries to advance and to progress. And even the basic level of literacy in those schools is increasing, and that's what needs to happen. Overall, all three types of education need to be improved. There needs to be improvement in all three areas. But what we're trying to say today is that the leadership education, that's the type of education that produces leaders and change makers and influencers and entrepreneurs and artists and all these types of people that are directing history, because really history is the history of its leaders. It's the leaders who are inspiring us, giving us goals and visions and dreams of the way the world can be. And it doesn't have to be huge. Again, it doesn't have to be, you know, that you become the next Gandhi. It can be simply by learning to influence and lead in your own circle of influence, your family, your friends, your community. That's what we're talking about. So this leadership, this educational foundation that we want you to get this big picture of, that's going to determine where we put in the puzzle pieces in the coming weeks, you know, as we discuss things. This foundation is basically, it's kind of based on this third type of education, leadership education. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. That's what we're trying to implement in our own home. That's what we've decided to pursue. We personally have chosen to homeschool. It fits with our lifestyle, but we're not saying homeschooling equals leadership education. It doesn't. There are a lot of people who homeschool who all they've done is taken government school and brought it into their home, because each type of education has a different method, curriculum, and goal. They all have different goals, they all have different methods, and they all have different ways of achieving those outcomes. So you could have you could homeschool, but be following the government school methodology. Okay, so but what we're talking about here is getting this big picture of what the leadership education includes, the methodologies it follows to produce the outcomes that we want, and how to implement those systems and those rituals into your home and into your lifestyle. Does that make sense? Is that as clear as mud? Get it? Okay, good, awesome. Now I've written about all this on my blog, so you can go there and read about this specific topic. Is there anything else, Hen? Or should I just, oh, he's giving me this look like what? I have a conclusion like of what I want you to get, but my husband has more to say.
Oh man, I get so excited about this. You know, I love what Rachel's saying there, and I think what happens often is, you know, let me share my own experience. You know, I just come to this world and come born in the U.S. and what a wonderful blessing and privilege that is. And I just start going to school when I was 5 or 6, and I just keep going to school. And then they keep telling me, yeah, get good grades and then go to college. And I keep going. I get to college, and then I graduate, and they hand me a diploma, and like, you have your education. I think, woohoo! And completely unaware of educational history, and completely unaware that there's other types. And so for many of us, including myself, I didn't even know that existed, and so I thought that was education. And so that third type of education, which is actually the last one to come along, is in a lot of ways, for a lot of us, has replaced the other types. And so it's there masquerading as education, but really it's not. It's just one little small part of it. And so we've got to come to this understanding. We've got to come to this awakening. Oliver DeMille's book, Leadership, it's called Leadership Education, is a fantastic book. Highly recommend it. Where we get this grasp, and then we start, taking steps. And again, we're going to get into educational rituals. Those are going to be in part of the steps and the things that are in the coming weeks. We're going to talk about that. But maybe a lot of you right now are like, okay, I'm getting a picture. I'm getting the idea that whatever I'm doing for my children, myself, I've got to supplement it. I've got to add more. I've got to take it to the next level. I've got to help my kids really take ownership of their own education. And I've got to sit down today and get a big picture, a vision. I mean, without a vision, the people perish. You can't hit a target you can't see. And so I guess a step today, a takeaway, some action steps, is maybe sit down today with your spouse and your family and start writing out and saying, hey, what is education? What are our educational goals? What are they 5 years, 10 years, end of life? What are we going to wish we had done, accomplished, experienced? I think I've mentioned this before and we'll continue to mention it. For us, the perfect educational philosophy includes intense study, voracious, well-read, just getting information and truth from all sources, combined with incredible life experiences. There are certain things you cannot learn any other way except by going out and experiencing them, and a lot of them need to be pushing your limits and your comfort zone and really getting outside of that. And so for us, this end result, we have a picture and an idea of what we want to accomplish for ourselves and our children. Includes speaking multiple languages, having visited well over 100 countries and experiencing the culture and understanding from animals to complex machinery, from cellular biology to astronomy. And the whole range, the whole gamut, and being with the poorest of the poor and understanding how people live in that culture and society and that level, to the wealthiest of the wealthy, to change makers, to somebody who takes initiative, is alive and active and strong and confident. And whether it's just in your own home, where there's just absolute excellence, where our children, they own it, it's theirs, and they're directing their life consciously and deliberately and leading out and making changes, or at a community or at a world level where they're doing something that is making a difference in the world and the lives of other people. And so I'm challenging you today to sit down with them, write that out clearly. What does education mean? And start putting in some rituals, routines, some systems, so to speak. And again, we'll give you more help on that later, but start getting an idea. What does this mean? How do I actually make it happen? Start thinking through that numbers. Maybe the number is 20,000 hours of study, is what is your foundation, okay? Once I have 20,000 hours of study, that's my foundation. Well, if you only study an hour a day, that's 20,000 days, man. Woo! You better get on it, right? If it's 2 hours, okay, we're at 10,000 days. That's still so much. Are you with me? If you want to read, you guys, if you only read a book a week, okay? Only a book a week. And that's what? Let's say that's 50 a year, okay? 10 years to read 500 books. Let that sink in. If you want to read 1,000 books and you only read one a week, that's going to take you 20 years. Okay, which is wonderful. It's phenomenal. It's fantastic. But what if you want to read 10,000 books? You got to get after it. I'm finishing up a wonderful book, the memoirs of Louis L'Amour. It's called The Education of a Wandering Man. The guy was an unbelievable reader, and I recently have gotten to know him, and now he's become one of my chosen mentors and leaders and examples because he's a voracious learner and reader. He had an idea. He knew what he wanted to achieve and who he wanted to become, and he did it. The guy created a literary empire and was so well read and so accurate and became one of the very best and accurate storytellers out there. But he did it with an education and reading the amount he studied and combined that with experiences all over the world in the early 1900s. Just incredible. But that's what we're after. And it's so exciting. Don't be overwhelmed. Don't be discouraged. Don't be sitting there going, oh, I can't do it. Or, don't resist it. Don't fight it, saying, well, I already paid the price. I already took all those tests. I already got my degree. I'm done. Please don't.
So I want to just chime in really fast. I mean, we keep talking about reading books, and I think maybe, Hen, we need to talk about for a minute why reading books are so important and what type of books we're talking about here. Because we've already said, hey, it's not about academics, but yet we're talking about all this reading of books. What does that mean? How does it relate? And that's what I'm going to have Greg point out here. Yes, you.
I don't know what to say. Just kidding. Okay, why reading? Now, there are books out there. And please, not all books are of equal value. You know that. Many of the books that are published today and available are really great for camping. You take them with you out camping, and what you do is you tear the pages out and use them to, fuel your fire while you're camping there roasting healthy marshmallows. Ha! There's no such thing. Gotcha. All right. So don't read trash. I mean, we were just talking about that. If you read a book a week, it would take you 20 years to read 1,000 books, and there's how many millions of books available. There are so many fantastic world-class books available. Do not waste time reading trash and garbage. If you start a book and it's just junk, stop. Don't read it unless it's great. If you want book recommendation and you trust us to recommend books, then shoot us an email. We'll share our lists. I mean, there's so many great books to read. Spend your time reading books that change you, and we focus on classics, and classics being defined as really old or recent in every genre, every topic. But a classic is something that really affects you. Like, you read it and it teaches you a truth that reaches your soul, that touches you, that you can read again and again and still get great principles. I've read books, and I'm sure you have too, books that change your life, right? Think about that. Think of a book that just changed your life. I can think of a list of them right now. But what if you did that over and over and over, that almost every book you read added a principle that changed you? I mean, that's what education is. It's who you're becoming, and we're seeking greatness here. It's this quest for excellence. And if every book you're reading added something to you, right? There's a great quote by Emerson. He says, I no more remember the books I've read than the meals I've eaten, but every one has become a part of me and made me who I am, right? Get these books. Input determines output. It'll change you. And like Kafka said, we ought to be reading books that are like a fist pounding on our skulls, or like an ice axe breaking up the frozen sea inside us. Right? And he's like, well, reading for entertainment, stupid. You could write that silly book. He says, read books that just shake you up, that make you think, that just, grab you and say, wake up and get going. That's what we're talking about. And what that does is this constant flow of truth and information and questions and ideas. And every day I read to my children. When from very, very little, we read to our children constantly. Every single night I read to my children. And now they're getting to the age where they're just starting to hit the books. I mean, we just put goals with our children, and they're still young. We just put goals with them. They're going to read at their level. They're reading five books a week. In fact, Kaya told me this morning she read 8 books this week. I mean, they're going after it at their level, and that's, we're going to just keep that up for a whole life. And Rachel and I do the same thing. With constant flow of ideas. Well, what happens is your life gets permeated with this education. Right? Think about that. If constantly your mind is being fed great ideas, what's going to happen? It's going to shape the way you see the world, the way you live, the way you act, who you become. I can't remember who said it, but they said small minds talk about people. Mediocre minds talk about events. But great minds discuss ideas. And that's what we're after. We're after achieving this mind, this soul, this being that is after great ideas and education and learning, and this constant flow in your life of good things. And you're going to have to sacrifice some stuff. You have to turn the TV off. Right? Get rid of your TV. You're going to have to stop, instead of listening to music or the radio all the time, listen to great audio programs or books. I mean, just go after it. We'll get into more of this. And I'm going. We can go for hours. I love this topic, and I feel so strongly about it. A lot of us have just don't know any better, like I did, and just kind of got in and said, oh, that's education. We've got to snap out of that, get a real idea of what it is, and then go after it.
Well, that's a great place to end with this conclusion, since we're over time. So, yeah, I'm just going to say, today we want you to really just walk away with some idea of, whoa, there's a bigger picture out there, and I need to have some sort of beginning of an understanding of it, and then realize that, do you know what? Most of us don't have a great education. We don't. That's just the fact of the matter. We don't have it. You don't have it. Most people just don't have education, and so our goal is to achieve it. And then the third thing I want you to walk away with is that we need to realize we need to come up with a system to make this type of education a part of our lifestyle, a part of who we are, how we interact with our children, how we spend our time, our days, our mornings, our evenings. Every part of our life is going to become permeated with this. It's going to be a part of who we are and how we live and how we talk to our children. So instead of now, hey, how's your report card, or how's your grades, or how are you doing in school? It's like, what did you learn when you just read Anne Frank? Oh my gosh, how did you feel? What was that like? Can you imagine being in her place? That's the type of conversations we're having, and this alters our life. Okay, that's what this is about. So that's the takeaways we want you to have. Are you ready for it? Yes. Maybe I should turn on my camera so you can see me. Yes! Are you ready for it? We are ready. We love this. We're so passionate about it. And so that's why we're so excited, and we wanted to help you get this bigger vision of it, because when we got this bigger vision, we didn't, like Greg said, we weren't born with it. When we got this bigger vision, it's changed our life. And literally, it has altered the way we live. And so,
beginnings.
What?
We had pathetic beginnings.
Oh, we had pathetic beginnings, is what Greg is saying.
No, we started poor. Life was...
Why don't you turn on your camera and talk to the camera instead of to me? Nice.
I got more. No, what a point there. We had poor beginnings. I mean, I grew up in a broken home. I was out on the street at a young age. We just started at the bottom financially, educationally. I mean, just wasn't handed to us. Nobody was there to say, hey, this is what education is. No one was there to mentor us into greatness. I grew up in this little dinky neighborhood that was just, yeah, it wasn't very exciting. There was no great. The quest for excellence was not there. This wasn't surrounded by educational geniuses. I just wasn't. And then I ended up on the street surrounded by the lowest of the low. I mean, their ignorance reigns. I wasn't given this, and so we were exposed to it. And we want to. Our sincere, genuine desire is to help people see this. We want to change the world. We want to shape the world by redefining education and helping people set up systems and rituals that just rock their families. And I guess, can I end this party? This is it. This is key. This is a foundation. This is the glue that will hold your family together. This is the rocket fuel that will take your family up to their highest potential. This is the basis, the pillars, if you will, for building a fantastic family culture. So go after it. Get those things in writing. Spend some time thinking about them. Start today. Putting in practice. Huh?
And tune in next week.
And tune in next week, because now we're going to start putting those puzzle pieces into the puzzle. You're starting to see, okay, I'm getting an idea. So now we're going to give you all the pieces to do it. We're going to give you the tools, the tips, the strategies. I mean, here's to your fantastic family culture with a phenomenal world-class education. Go after it this week. Reach upward.